So first of all, who in the audience has had a job in a non-technical field? Okay, pretty much everybody. I don't know about you, but my interview process was I went in, I sat down, and I basically tried to charm the interviewers. I wanted them to like me and show that I had a brain. But there wasn't a lot of technical questions. Similar experience for you guys? Yeah? Okay. It's totally different in software engineering. And I think the biggest thing that luckily I was prepared for, but if I hadn't been prepared, it would have been a big surprise. I went in with my resume that detailed all of my past experiences in business process analysis, management, things like that, and they didn't care. They wanted to know if I could code. So I had to get up at a whiteboard and write code. It's a totally different experience to write code on a whiteboard than using Visual Studio with IntelliSense in a nice quiet room where you have no distractions. So I would definitely have somebody, even if they're not a technical person, sit there, watch you write code on a piece of paper taped to the board. That will help you a lot. So the other thing is that during the interviews, you're going to get questions that you don't know. But focus on what you do know. So for example, I was in an interview and they asked me to write in HTML how I would, I can't remember what the question was, but they wanted me to write something in HTML. It had been a few months since I had used HTML, so I was not comfortable with that. But I had been using Windows Presentation Foundation, which uses XAML, which is sort of similar to HTML. So I asked my interviewers, can I show you how to do it using this technology? And they said, sure. So I was able to, on the whiteboard, write how I would have done that, and they were not familiar with that technology, so I also had the opportunity to kind of teach them what I was doing. So that really showcased a skill that I had, and also a communication skill. So just focus on what you do know. Let's see. And then as far as applying for jobs, I agree with what you guys were saying is network. A lot of people, at least in my experience, are extremely eager to pass on your resume to the recruiters at their company. So make acquaintances in areas that you want to work and give them your resume. I feel like that is an excellent way to make contacts. And then the last thing is just a little bit of observation, is that the difference between myself coming through the one-year program, it was kind of a rush, and other graduates, even from Oregon State. My first job was working next to Oregon State campus graduate, was the internships. So he had had a number of internships during the summers, and I had not. And so I would definitely encourage you to do an internship or even some side projects just to ramp up your coding skills. It's totally different to work on a project from end to end than the assignments that you're getting in your classes.
So things that for interviewing, my experience was mostly it would start with a phone screen. A lot of the places I was interviewing were remote from me. Now, I suppose if they were like next door, they might have me in, but I kind of think this phone screen seems to be the standard. And so what they're doing is, hey, they're trying to check you out, make sure it's worth their time to pull you in. And even they're reluctant to risk the phone screener's time, because that's a guy who could be coding and doing stuff at their job, right? So that's why the interview is that hook. And if the more they know about you, the more that they have confidence based on your resume, the more they might be able to say, oh, I'll risk a phone screen. And then if that seems promising, then they'll call you in to maybe have it on site. Or maybe they'll have another phone screen, or like a more in depth or more technical type of phone screen. Most of my phone screens were, I've had like 4 or 5, whatever. And most of them were, the initial ones were like, they would ask you kind of some general questions about your resume and some general, they'd have like 1 or 2 kind of more focused, like linked list, write for me this section of code that can do something like a for loop type thing, and reverse the characters in a string in C or something like that. So they were kind of generically, kind of vague, broad, not super technically detailed. But then once you got on site, that's when they kind of hit you with at least that's what my experience was. They hit you with the heavier technical interviews. In fact, I've had a couple on-site interviews, and most of them were long, like all-day type of things. So it was like a marathon. So I prepared for those by there's awesome websites nowadays where you can go and just like Top Coder and other coding ones. If you check out the Google board, the postback connection place on Google Plus, they actually, if you search in the history, there's a number of recommendations on different sites to use, or you can just Google it. Find some coding places to practice your algorithms, practice your data structures, and in different languages, or at least to secure the ones you know. Know how to do these data structures that you learned maybe in your first or second term. The thing that kind of was different for me was I've interviewed in a lot of places over the years, not in a technical manner, and not in a technical industry. The culture is distinctly different, just like Chauncey said. It is amazingly different. They don't give a rip about your technical background. Like I have a resume for security management that is phenomenal. In fact, I get like a 50% return on every resume I send out for a security director role, okay? I got a lot of returns on those and a lot of interviews. But the thing that really comes into play is they don't care about the fact that you know how to talk about Clary statistics. And some of you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but it's basically the federal regulation that requires you to report crime on campus. I have that on lock, but they don't care about that in the software engineer field. There's a different mentality. It's like a show me, show it, prove it. And so why it's very important to have those soft skills, like being able to talk to people, being able to communicate, write things on paper, because like for example, my role, I'm talking with people all around the world, and so a lot of our communication is in email. So I have to write email, and then they're not as strong of a language speaker sometimes in English, and so I have to kind of say, okay, we have to simplify this English language. So these soft skills really matter, but when they want to hire you, they want to know, can you do it? Can I trust you that you're not going to screw up my reputation as a manager or make a headache long term? They want it that proof. So do some reading. Look, there's interview books that kind of provide examples, and I would suggest to look at those. So anyways, that's for now.